I was adamant on titling this video The Lost Generation of Today, which is the title of this video. So I went onto Google and searched up The Lost Generation to see if there were any search results, and there were plenty of search results pertaining to The Lost Generation. The Lost Generation actually refers to this group of people who were born between 1883 and the 1900s as they grappled with major post-World War I and even World War II impacts, whether it be social, political, or economic. They all struggled to acquire basic necessities required for their survival. So you contrast their lives with ours, it is almost 100% clear that we have life so much better than them. Then why is it that this current generation is more lost than ever? Why are we failing to live out our purpose? I think that boils down to one core reason, and that is the prioritization of self-actualization. It's a simple point, but I have a lot to expound on. If you take a look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the bottom few layers of the pyramid are closely associated with human necessities required for survival, essentially, whereas the top portion of the pyramid is more closely associated with self-actualization. Now that most of us have access to basic needs like food, shelter, clothing, we are now searching for self-actualization. We are all searching for some sort of purpose, and I do believe that all of us are placed on this earth to live out a certain purpose, whether you figure it out yet or not. But I think in the midst of trying to find our purpose, we get so confused, and there are multiple catalysts for this whole epidemic, which I'm going to get into now. I think one of which is this, our phones. Not necessarily our phones, but social media. You might say that social media has allowed us to gain connection with the rest of the world, which is true, right? But I think that in itself is a problem. A lot of the friendships we form online are superficial, definitely far more superficial than friends we have made in real life, through school, through a certain sport, through a certain hobby, right? And yeah, a lot of online friendships are also formed through hobbies, through gaming. But I think the reason why real life friendships are far more rooted in love and are less superficial is because they have the face-to-face aspect. You get to meet the other party in real life. You get to communicate with non-verbal cues, which can't be replicated online. There's this barrier preventing you from meeting face-to-face with the other person. There are apps, there are multiple ways which you can go about this, but still an online friendship will never beat a real-life friendship. Let me give you an example. You go to school together, you go through a common experience with a friend. Naturally, logically, that friendship will be far stronger than a friend you've only talked to, interacted with on social media, because you have lived through certain experiences, you have tied through certain hardships with them. Friendship will generally be stronger. On the topic of social media thrives on comparison. I've spoken about this in multiple of my videos before, but social media really thrives on comparison. I'm not saying that our parents and previous generations before us couldn't compare themselves with their friends, with their peers, but it has definitely become more magnified and more apparent in today's society, because with social media we can compare ourselves with literally anybody in the world, even celebrities who don't even know us. And so that just feeds into our discontent, and we keep going down this rabbit hole of comparing ourselves with others, and eventually end up adopting this mindset that we are failing at life. Other people are out there living such good lives, and here I am rotting at home. So this gives you this perception that you're always falling behind, and there's no way to fix this, because there's always going to be people who are more advanced than you. So I think one way to cope with this is definitely curate your following, and I will speak about this in another video, but I think there is merit to curating your following to only follow people you really resonate with, people who uplift you. Anyways, I think aside from social media, we are very convoluted nowadays, because more and more people are trying to find outlets to place their identities in. We become very convoluted with different ideas and narratives. There are television programs which are made for kids, right, but have subtle sexual messages in them. Not saying that that directly correlates to a lack of identity, but I think exposing them to such mature themes at a young age is definitely not going to play out well. When you are a kid, I think you should be learning about basic life principles, basic morals, basic things which your foundation can be built on, not these mature topics and themes. Going back to the point, we are so convoluted with so many different narratives. There's narratives which make us feel better about ourselves, and then there are also other narratives that we need to push ourselves, work hard and all that. So we're being convoluted about all kinds of narratives. We don't know where we should place our identity in, and identities are what makes us uniquely us. So because there's so many outlets where we can place our identities in, we become even more confused. Where should I place my identity in? And I know a lot of people in today's age have some sort of distaste for religion, but I think religion has some sort of merit, right? Because people in the past didn't have so many converging narratives that this set of principles to follow, which basically kept them sane. But now we are so convoluted with different narratives. It definitely gives us more options to choose what resonates with us, but it also just leaves us more confused than ever. I think on this topic, I want to talk about something that is not very often spoken about, and this might be slightly controversial, but there's this heightened awareness for mental health, which kind of makes us feel like we are lost in life. I'm not saying that mental health awareness is a bad thing. It's good to be self-aware, and I think the reason why people didn't have mental health issues back then is because of the lack of awareness. People didn't know what depression was back then. Anyways, awareness is good, but there comes a point where we become hypochondriacs. Hypochondriac refers to a person who is overly conscious about their physical health. I think there should be a term coined for a person who's overly obsessed with their mental health. But with this heightened awareness for mental health, a lot of people tend to self-diagnose themselves with medical illnesses like depression, anxiety, PTSD, all these. Of course, if you feel like you have one of these conditions, you should get yourself checked up. But so many people, when they feel down or when they feel anxious at times, they coin it as depression or anxiety. I think that only does more harm than good, because your mind is so powerful. You've heard this a million times before, and it's cliche, but I think it's true. The more you tell yourself you're depressed, the more you tell yourself you're anxious, the more anxious and depressed you'll become, right? Because you're just putting a medical label on yourself, which might not even be true. So you also think that I'm stuck with this illness, and that's only gonna make matters worse. I think the best way to describe this, you can go search this concept up on Google. There's actually this thing whereby medical labels actually make people more anxious. So you diagnose yourself with anxiety, depression, you become more anxious, you get stuck in this bubble thinking that you have that illness, and then it's going to make you even more anxious, depressed, whatever. You go search it up. It's an actual thing. I went to search it up so that I know I'm not sprouting some sort of bullshit. Anyway, I just wanted to highlight some of the key catalysts to why this generation is so lost and so purposeless, because I feel like if we dig at the core of the issue, which is self-fulfillment, we can better position ourselves to act in ways which doesn't detrimentally make us more lost and more confused. Peace.